There comes a point in a kid's life where they go, I want to play that, and for me, having Let's Plays be a pretty big part of my childhood, the game I wanted to play was Super Mario 64. Sure, I had the DS version, but that just wasn't the same. Now depending on who you ask, I may have had the better version of the game, but that was irrelevant. I wanted to play the original Mario 64. And then came the day of my 11th birthday, and when scrolling through the Google Play Store, I came across something called an SNES emulator. I had no idea what it was, but the icon looked cool enough for me to download it. I opened the app to a screen saying something along the lines of select your ROM, and something clicked. I became enlightened. I opened up Google, searched Super Mario All-Stars ROM, and legally acquired it before a whole new world of gaming opened up to me. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. One N64 emulator and ROM later, and I was set. I could finally play Super Mario 64. Keep in mind, I was playing with touch controls, so it wasn't ideal, but that didn't stop me from loving every moment I played of the game, and others like it. I eventually discovered I could do the same with the family laptop, and used one of those cheap USB controllers with no analog stick to truly set off my career as an addict of games that came out a decade before I was born. I'm sure many of you watching have similar stories of how you got into emulation, and can attest to how magical it feels to see an entire new world of games open up before you, as you explore games you always wanted to play, but that were just before your time, too expensive, or even were only available through emulation. And truth be told, emulators make it easy. If 11-year-old me could figure out how to do it, then you've done a good job keeping something simple. But to stay on topic, playing N64 games in particular on PC is fascinating, because sure, you've got standard emulation, but that's just the gateway to something greater. ROM hacks and decompilations, the two main things I want to cover in today's video. So I want you to join me as we take a look at the incredible world of N64 games on PC. So, what can an N64 emulator do? Well, obviously it plays N64 games, but what else can it do? How about upscaling this old 240p game to a resolution more in line with modern standards? We can also upscale the textures to be more pleasing on the eyes, and then on the gameplay side of things, we can use save states to attempt and reattempt difficult tricks without the fear of dying, and straight up cheat. That's what a base emulator like Project 64 can do. You can do more with the Glide N64 plugin, but for most players, this is as far as you can go, which is where ROM hacks come in. Thanks to the efforts of the community, we can now add even more upgrades on what the emulator allows us. Now we can play these games at 60 FPS and with widescreen, can use texture packs to give them a modern flair, and even play entirely new games. Super Mario 64 Last Impact is one of the most impressive pieces of N64 media I've ever seen. Essentially, it's a pseudo-sequel to Mario 64 with all new courses and power-ups. It's also very beginner-friendly despite being a ROM hack, which some others struggle with, notably Star Road. And like Star Road, it was mostly made by one person, Case Emmanuel. This man is an enigma. The guy has probably made Mario 64 ROM hacks and the number of stars in the game. It's thanks to his work that you can play Mario 64 online, and it's thanks to these fan emulators that we get to have these new experiences in our favorite games. Fans can keep these games and franchises alive when it seems that their developers have abandoned them, and eventually, through this experience, become game designers themselves. But no matter what, emulators are limited in their capability. The day I see Project 64 run Majora's Mask at 60 FPS is the day I leave my dog, which is to say, it'll probably never happen. Emulators just can't provide the same level of customizability as a native PC port of the games would, but it's very well known that N64 games are notoriously hard to even emulate, and the possibility of that is— oh, who am I kidding? You already know where I'm going with this.
It's me, Mario! Hello!
This is the entire reason I wanted to make this video. Thanks to years of hard work from fans, games like Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda games have been successfully decompiled to their original code, allowing them to receive actual native PC ports. In the case of Mario 64, this has opened up doors to some truly out-of-this-world ideas. Many forks of the game exist. For the vanilla game with modern enhancements, we have Super Mario 64 Plus. For online multiplayer, we have SM64 EX Co-op. But the crown jewel of all of this has to be Render 96. This is impressive. Render 96 is a graphics pack for Mario 64, with the goal to make everything look like its promotional art as well as the game's manual. And the results are frankly stunning. Everything looks so good. The frame rate can be as high as we wanted. The game truly feels modern. Oh, but we're not done. New Luigi keys and Wario coins can be found in stages to even add them to the mix with their usual movesets, and combining this with the Super Mario Odyssey movement patch that allows us to unlock Peach would have made this the definitive version of Mario 64 had it not been for one more thing we could add. Freaking ray tracing. You can play a game from 1996 with ray tracing. The door handles reflect the environment around them. Do I need to say more? Probably not, but I will anyway, because this team deserves it. Render 96, along with the creator of the RT64 API, have made one of my favorite games better than I could have ever imagined, and they deserve so much credit for the work they've done. And as much as I would just love to walk you through every new updated model and feature, this isn't what you're here for, so all I can do is urge you to at least play Render 96. You won't be disappointed. The N64 Zelda games got a similar treatment, but they're both wildly different. So let's talk about them. For Ocarina of Time, we have what's known as Ship of Harkinian, probably the most customizable port yet. There is a setting for everything. Of course, we have our standard stuff, high FPS, widescreen, the works, but where SOH truly shines is in its gameplay options. Do you want the bunny hoop to actually make you faster like in the sequel? Well, now you can. Do you want to play with iron boots on the C buttons? You bet that's there. But do you want to know what my favorite feature is? Ship of Harkinian contains a full-fledged randomizer with an included item and check tracker. In fact, let me gush about this for a bit. I already talked about Last Impact, might as well give in my 2 cents on this. In short, it's some of the most fun I've had with the game in a long time. Now, normally, I'm not a fan of stuff like roguelikes, but when only the items are randomized in a world I'm as familiar with as I am with Ocarina of Time, even I have to admit, it's pretty fun. The fact that every chest could include the most important item you need at that point is thrilling. It's also pretty amazing that shops have a genuine purpose now, because they could contain the actual namesake of the game. Chests I'd usually ignore are now the first ones I check, and grottos become either some of the best spots to visit or utter wastes of time. It's really great. It's to the point where I don't know if I'll be replaying vanilla Ocarina of Time going forward, because I'll probably want to try another randomizer seed, making it harder each playthrough. By the way, do not recommend randomizing small key locations. It makes adult dungeons really hard, if not impossible to do in one go without glitches. Alright, I realize I've derailed. To finish up my thoughts on it, I think Ship of Harkinian is an absolute must-play for any fan of Ocarina of Time, even the 3D version. That was my go-to way to play for the longest time, but SOH won me over. It's that good. Now, there is an in-development Ship of Harkinian for Majora's Mask called 2 Ship 2 Harkinian, but instead, I'd like to focus on a different port, the Majora's Mask recompilation by Wiseguy. Not because I find it better, in fact I think out of the two I prefer 2 Ship right now, but because of what it means for the wider world of N64 gaming on PC. See, you might have noticed that I called this port a recompilation, not a decompilation. And while I'm nowhere near tech savvy enough to tell you the difference, what we have here is a tool developed by Wiseguy that opens up the potential for any N64 game to receive a PC port. They probably just chose Majora's Mask because it was decompiled with Ocarina of Time, so we know a lot about its inner workings. But the game they originally tested this out with was Rocket Robot on Wheels, a very obscure N64 game. The Majora's Mask port currently only consists of the by now almost expected graphical and performance improvements, as well as a bunch of quality of life improvements, such as bringing back the Ocarina of Time style of saving. But Wiseguy is working on a randomizer, ray tracing support, and even placing Ocarina of Time in the launcher. Needless to say, I'm very excited for the future of not only this project, but N64 PC ports as a whole. Maybe one day, we'll finally get the definitive version of Tonic Trouble, for all 6 of you who still remember that game. N64 gaming has gone a long way. Despite all that I've said, emulators are still very viable and versatile programs. With the addition of native PC ports, the future of one of gaming's earliest attempts at 3D shines brighter than ever. I hope you check out everything I mentioned here, and hopefully I got you to remember some fond memories. That being said, have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.